It's Friday, and that means it's time for another in our series, Fanzine Friday. Today we take a look at the Dungeoneer number 5 from May of 1977. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer, and this is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Each week on Fanzine Friday, we pull a fanzine off the shelf for a closer look. This week, that's the Dungeoneer number 5 by Jennell Jaquays from May of 1977. If you haven't seen one of these before, fanzines are magazines produced by fans for fans of a particular hobby. In our case, that's RPGs with a focus on Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeoneer number 5 is a particularly interesting issue. Most of the content is tied into a very large adventure that Jaquays and a couple other people produced called Night of the Walking Wet. I'm really excited to talk about this today, and I hope you'll enjoy the video. So as we do each week, we're going to take a look at the Dungeoneer, starting with the cover. I'll give you a table of contents, and then we'll take a look at some of the highlights and impressions from this issue. The cover, again, heavy stock, paper folded in half and stapled. I don't know if you can tell from this video picture, it's a little bit of like a pale blue color. This is Jaquays art. It's a little more playful than in some of the earlier issues. It's like a little gnome with a cap that says DM, I think, for Dungeon Master. And he says, "Dare you enter the realm of the slime god?" And that's a reference to the antagonist in the adventure that's in this issue. It says, "Buy design and find out." And then behind there's a little pile of slime. On the producer's page, publisher's page, no official Torchlight, but she says she mentions 2 new ones that she hadn't mentioned before. The first one is Trollcrusher by Brian Ansell, and that's from the UK. And that's a RPG D&D focused design. And then Spellbound is one that she says she hasn't read. They advertise actually in this issue. That's a new one from New York. And then there's an advertisement here from a bookshop. There's a couple of ads here, this one and the one for Spellbound. So table of contents, we did the publisher's notes. The Arcane Elders is the fantasy fiction that continues from prior issues. And as we said before, each issue, different authors handle that issue's text. This time it's attributed to Hendricks, Ward, and Jaquays as co-authors of this issue's edition, I guess. The goodies bag are magic items, and they both, a couple of things, and they relate to the adventure, as do the monsters in the Monster Matrix. And then we have the adventure, it's the Night of the Walking Wet. It's so large, it actually is only partly in this issue, and the rest of it is in issue number 6. Tricks and traps are just ideas for things you could add into anywhere in a dungeon or campaign, different types of tricks and traps. And a change in the elemental is an article by Jim Ward, and we'll talk about that a little later. The contributors list has changed. Jaquays, Hendricks, and Ward all are alumni, if you will, from prior issues, and then 3 new folks are providing content to this one. So the Monster Matrix, just 2 things, and these are actually just detailed descriptions of monsters that are going to be in the adventure. So these Harvest Men, it says, are the combination of some spider demon made combination between spiders and humans, and so these spider creatures have like hand fingers for legs. They're pretty tough. The number appearing can be 2 to 40, so that would be really tough if there's a lot of them. But their main thing is they sort of jump onto you, they land on you, they try to crush you. If they make a hit, and this is an interesting dynamic that I think they just made up, if there's a hit and the roll is 17 or higher, they automatically do what they call a crush attack. If it's a hit and it's lower than 17, you're automatically knocked down, which is pretty tough. And then it can try to crush you the next round. And whenever it makes a successful crush, you essentially can't do anything. You can't attack. The only thing you can try to do is use a strength roll with a penalty of -10 to get free. And if you don't, then they automatically do damage to you. They also do have I don't know if it's a bite, I guess it's a bite, that can inject poison, and it says it can be either poison that does damage or paralysis. And then the other thing here are these, they're called aqua zombies. they're a monster featured in The Walking Wet, and so they sort of look like undead, but they aren't really. They're bodies that have been infected by this slime that's slowly basically converting them from some type of humanoid into a pile of slime. And so this, when you meet them like this, they're sort of like halfway through the transformation. And if you get hit by a bite attack or a claw attack, then your character can be infected as well. So that's a pretty scary concept. The art at the top, it actually says Arocho, who's one of the new contributors, and Jaquays. I get credit for the drawing of the Harvest Man, and then Jaquays did the drawing of the zombie. So here is the adventure, and you can see it goes on and on and on for pages and pages, multiple maps, and again, that's not even the whole thing. A little bit of the backstory, I won't give too much away, but essentially there was a great hero who got this land. He ends up in the middle, essentially, of what's a swamp, but he builds his castle there. It says it goes through 17 generations of the family, and then finally their castle's attacked by a group of ogres who overpowers it and begins destroying it. And then there's this, we get a little bit of the sci-fi concept that there's this thing that comes crashing out of the night sky, burning, it lands nearby. Turns out it's some type of a UFO. And then there's a priest who was went to investigate, never comes back, and it turns out that he was been infected by this slime god, and he sort of takes up residence there, and then brings in more henchmen to help him take over the place. And then there's this conversion of things into the aqua zombies and others. So a very good adventure. This is not a 1 or 2 session adventure. This is like full-blown, the size of a sort of TSR module, I would say. Very complex, really great adventure for your players. And it's the kind of thing, with it being in a swamp, most worlds have a swamp, so you could probably make a decision to locate this in your own world if you have a home world, and use it. And there was a reproduction of this done by the, I think, North Texas Con relatively recently, and there's copies of that floating around out there as well. And Jaquays was involved in that project, as I understand it. The Change in the Elementals, the article by Jim Ward, and then some great art, by the way, down here at the bottom. It doesn't say if that's Jaquays or Arocho, but so I'm not sure which one did that drawing. Jim's essential idea here is he's just saying, we do in the Monster Manual, you have air, water, earth, and fire, and he says, I don't know why we don't have other elementals, light, darkness. He even talks about things like, wind or lava as being other things in the world that you could choose to make into an elemental that is in the form of a monster. And that's it for this fanzine. Not a lot to talk about because so much of the content is the actual adventure, and I don't sort of dig into extreme details of those. But again, a great issue. 5 and 6, certainly you want to buy both of them and get that adventure if you have the chance. And just another great piece of RPG history. Hope you're enjoying the series. Hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, my friends, keep rolling.